Let me just say something first, Dave.
What?
Quick announcement. I know we've all had Service Desk on our mind, but my company name is actually Service Rocket, as you can see from there. Dave.
All right. Hi, my name is Dave McCutcheon, and I'm at LinkedIn. And this is Matt Dorr from Service Rocket. Today we're going to talk about the use of Jira at LinkedIn, starting at when I started there about 6 years ago, from a 50-person company to over 4,000-person enterprise, and how Jira has helped us grow with that. So, go to our next slide. Matt's going to push my buttons here.
I always push Dave's buttons, especially when the slides don't work. Okay.
Okay, so at LinkedIn, I'm in the in the tools group. I run the release tools for LinkedIn. We have over 2,000 engineers at LinkedIn, and so some of the services that I maintain are the source control system, our binary control systems, our build systems, both in Ant and in Gradle, and some homemade development tools, and then also, again, some additional third-party tools like Jira and Artifactory. At LinkedIn, 6 years ago when I joined, Jira was already there. I had come from a Bugzilla environment before that, but Jira was already entrenched at LinkedIn. It was initially just for operations, and then engineering developed with it as well. But since then, we've had some other issue tracking tools, and what we decided to do was get rid of all of those, just focus on one issue tracking system, and so we used Jira for that. So engineering uses it for bug tracking, our ops department uses it for help desk tickets, our facilities use it for facility management as well. So the entire company is using Jira for all of its issue or bug tracking altogether. So it's easy to use, it's nice and seamless, everybody uses it at Jira, so it just kind of like is a corporate glue at LinkedIn for any kind of issue or bug tracking. Okay, so at LinkedIn, we have one Jira instance, and it's pretty big. We have over 500,000 issues, and then over 100 or over 1,000 different custom fields, I remember. And so it's quite massive. Building the indexes takes a long time, and we have over 200 different workflows, and then we integrated it with our corporate LDAP system with 4,000 users and a various amount of user groups within our LDAP system, so we have quite a bit there. Yeah? Okay, so when we started with Jira, it was so easy to use, and we didn't really have a full-time Jira administrator. So what happened is that we would let certain people who had projects that they needed to do become Jira administrators. And so after a while, we ended up with about 50 different Jira administrators running the site. And people were just running into each other. Actually, can you hit the next slide? So with all of these different people, we needed to create a user group just to keep the Jira admins up to date with things, but they would constantly make changes to workflows that other teams were relying on, and so the system was becoming unstable because one guy would change a workflow or a permission scheme that affected another group. And it's so used so much within the company, it's an SLA1 that we would find out about it within a couple minutes that somebody had made a change, and we'd have to go through looking at audit logs to figure out who had made that change and then roll those back. So, what is this one? This is the upgrade slide. So, one of the problems was after we had 50 of these admins using the system, they were creating their own workflows. They were using JavaScript within the workflows. They were adding plugins. They were creating some of their own plugins. They were using different email templates and everything. And nobody really understood what was going on holistically. So when we upgraded from the 4.0 or 4.x version of Jira to 5.x, I think 5.2, right? We had to go across the whole company and tell them, or work with all the different project administrators to figure out who owned what code was in their system, how we were going to test and verify each project within the system, and then try or force different project owners to verify that their Jira projects were working after the upgrade, because it was just so used within the company. So, was there anything else there about? So that was about it. The actual upgrade wasn't that hard. It was just the headache. It was a project admin task more than anything else, because we had, with over 200 workflows, we also had over 200 projects, and so we had to at least coordinate who those different project owners were and everything like that. So we actually did the upgrade with only a 10-minute downtime of Jira. We had to make it a read-only for about an hour and a half while we were migrating the data over to the Jira 5.x. And we had to have all kinds of banners. Please do not make changes to Jira. You'll have to do it again at 5:30 or 6:30 and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's about upgrades. The other thing about LinkedIn is we use Jira for notifications about the state of the site. If we're having a problem with this one feature, our internal NOC team will create a Jira issue that then alerts all the executives that we're having a problem with one piece of the site. And it also alerts the engineers involved. And so we use it as a tracking system or a notification system more than anything else. Most people don't even see the forms. It's the NOC who sees the forms. All the executives see are the emails. And so we're just creating tons of email. And we've had times where the outgoing email to Outlook, that queue can get up to something like 15,000 emails in the queue. And so we've had to build monitoring scripts to monitor the state of Jira emails to make sure that we're below a certain amount of email in the queue. And we also need to make sure that our emails go out on time. We've had complaints where emails took 5 hours to get out. And if there's an issue with the site and people don't find out for 5 hours later, that's a big deal. They really depend on that in the email area. So I couldn't get an open rec at LinkedIn for a Jira administrator on a full-time basis. And while I had all of these 50 different developers making changes to Jira right and left, I was just struggling to keep the system up and running. And so I went to an Atlassian user forum. There's one in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And so I wanted to find out where this thing was. And I called this guy, and he says, yeah, we're having it at your office next week. So I was going, wow. All right. So I raced over there, and I met Matt Dorr and Service Rocket. And then we immediately got them on a contract to work with us to essentially do the Jira administration holistically for a change. And around that time, we also cut off the 50 administrators and moved it down to just 1 or 2 with a little bit of angst among those administrators. But once we got Service Rocket there, we were starting to be able to manage Jira holistically for the entire company. And so at this point, Matt's going to talk about how he resolved a lot of our growing pains at LinkedIn with Jira, and took it away.
Thank you, Dave. Oh, thank you, Dave. Are we good? So when Ken Olofsson of Atlassian, Ken's here somewhere, and I want to thank him for the work that he did in previewing this presentation. And he made a very clear point to me that he wanted lots of takeaways. And at first I actually thought he was talking about the food trucks outside. It turned out that he soon set me right on it. What he said was give them something they can use. So on each of these, that's what I'm going to try and do, each of these points. Current set of approaches that we have with Jira at LinkedIn on scaling, you can read these as well as I can. But the most important thing that we've found is the appearance of simplicity on a tool. So if every field that you can remove from a screen in Jira is going to make people that much more comfortable because they don't have to think about whether they're going to use that field at all. So hiding fields from people, hiding projects. When a project is complete, a whole Jira project, don't let it just still float around there. We want to get those projects hidden away. The admin should still see them, they can be read-only. But don't make your ordinary user have to think about choices of projects. So another important point about this is the don't surprise users. Users get mean when you surprise them, right? When you surprise them with a tool. So things like being very careful to limit all your changes so that it's only affecting the subset of people that you want. There's nothing worse than coming in as a user. You come in on Monday morning and suddenly there's 3 new fields on your Jira Create issue or on the issue you're looking at. And you're like, what is that? Now I have to think about something else. Don't make me think. Just give me the fields that I want in my Jira. We also wanted to delete a lot of data, but it turns out that for accountability reasons, when SOX compliance, we can't delete the data at LinkedIn. So one of the things that we're very interested in pressing Atlassian for is the Jira Archiver that some of you have heard talk of over the last few days. We actually were one of the early trial sites for that, and it's working really well. There's just a few more wrinkles to iron out about the plugin data being archived as well. But that's something we're looking forward to. In the meantime, we're going to end up splitting our Jira, I think, federate the Jira and deal with the issues of trying to search across both of them. Adaptivist, who talked this morning, Dan and I were talking, and I think they're going to be coming up with a federated search solution as well, so keep pressing them. Governance. Points on this slide are really far more general than just Jira. They're about any tool. Think of any tool that you're using, any service, any application. If it's used by the whole organization, you need at least 2 administrators. 1 is never enough. You may not have the recs for them, but you've got to have 2 because one might get hit by a bus. On the other hand, as soon as you get up to double digits, you're going to be in trouble because 10 human beings just don't communicate clearly between each other without making a lot more effort than the smaller number. So somewhere between 2 and 10 is where I recommend we keep our number of admins. And indeed, to make this whole thing scale, then we found that delegating the power, it's power to the people, some limited power that is anyway. The more that we can use the Jira project roles to give project administration to people, then the happier they are. On the other hand, it is very important that we set the expectations of what they should be able to do with project admin. There's a number of times people come to me and they say, oh, you gave me project admin. Now, how can I do my own Jira backup? And I'm like, no, just project admin, please. This reminds me of a story. We had one prospective customer who came to me with very detailed description of exactly how Jira should behave. And as he started to go along, it really sounded like he knew his stuff, but then it was slightly off. And I'm like, no, that's not how Jira works. No. So I finally said to him after about 10 minutes, have you ever used Jira? And he said, oh, no, but this is how it should work. So we put him right on that. We said, well, yes, of course, we can, we're a service rocket, we're a service company. We can make it work like that if you want, but understand it would mean rewriting a whole bunch of Jira core functionality. So what you should do, of course, is use Jira in this way, and then you'll make your users happy. You'll be able to get the stuff that you need, and you won't be bending the tools so far out of shape. So something else we do with Jira at LinkedIn is we make Jira our meta tracker. So how many people have heard the term meta tracker in the audience? Just show of hands. Trickle. Okay, good. Then it's something you've learned yet. Are we meta? Very important in a programming conversation, the point in time when you go meta. The meta tracker is just, it's a simple idea. It's just using Jira to track issues about Jira. Makes sense, right? But you'd be surprised how many people, how many Jira admins have to deal with email requests to make changes to Jira instead of having a Jira issue to make a change with Jira. We have our own project at LinkedIn, hundreds of issues now in there, if not more. We use a Kanban Agile board to track it, very nicely, thank you, Agile. And we have a routine where we do the regular triage, scrape off the small tasks and just get them done to keep people happy, particularly the people who used to be Jira admins but are no longer Jira admins, have to keep them happy. And anything of the larger requests, the larger changes to Jira, we'll use an epic for. Oh. On to upgrading. So David was talking about the effort that it takes at LinkedIn to do the upgrade. And earlier on this morning, I believe, Raju from Pandora was talking about he had automated a lot of the deployment, puppetized the deployments of Jiras or Jira instances. And I agree with him. And if I had to do that many deployments, I would certainly be automating it. At the moment, we only have three instances of Jira, the production, staging, and standby. And if I'm only doing an upgrade once a year, then actually the effort on deployment there, automating deployment, doesn't make sense. If I had my three Jira production instances and 3 Jira staging and 3 Jira development instances, and I was upgrading them and syncing them all once a month, then yes, of course, I'd be automating. Oh, backwards, forwards. Of course, this isn't all for Jira. What I've just been saying about whether it's worth automating a deployment process, that applies to all of the tools that we've been talking about. So you've heard this advice already before, documenting every change that you've made for the next time. File changes. When people talk about file changes, they start thinking version control. That's not a bad idea, actually. If you version control your entire application, including the instance and some parts of the data directory, why not? The tools that we've got will cope with it. And then you know that you've been able to capture every change, everything that you've branched off. Here was your original pristine virgin Jira installation, and then you branched off, you made all the changes, and then later on you put in another brand new Jira installation, and you've got to merge all the stuff back in. Branching and merging. That's what it all is all about. Now, actually, we're quite lucky with Jira in comparison to many other applications. Much of the hard merge work is done by Jira itself. So everyone knows branching and merging, right? Branching is easy. You've copied the file. Merging the edited file back into the original, into another copy, that's hard. But Jira has a whole bunch of upgrade tasks that run underneath when you do an upgrade, that upgrade all the data that's inside Jira for you. So we're standing up here and saying that, yeah, the upgrades were a lot of work for us. In fact, most of the work was not really on the technical side of Jira. Most of it is on the coordinating human beings into getting them to run tests. I'm sure you all know the scenario where you've done a test upgrade and people have looked at it and they've said they looked at it, but then you go live and then you have the worst week of your year trying to catch up with all the things that people didn't look for when they were doing the testing. Very frustrating. Another couple of points here. Email templates, still a lot of work, I find, and all those little bits of custom JavaScript in your field configurations, not a good idea. Once you reach 30 or 40 of them, they're all subtly different and not documented. So either version control those outside Jira as well, or use some other solution like behaviors plugin. Email. Dave touched on the fact that we have a lot of email in LinkedIn. There's a certain irony here, you know, because some people like to use their email inbox as their inbox as their to-do list. You know, if there's still a piece of email there, it's on an action item for you. That's not really a great way to do it because the action items get lost with all the other email. So then they say, oh, I'll have a tool like Jira and I'll use that for my to-do list. And great. And then they set Jira up so that it spams out so much email that they fill their inbox back up with even more mail than they had before they were using it for their to-do list. It's a mystery. But I do think that in some cases, we're still stuck with email. So when we can't use something like HipChat, which I'm showing here, which we found to be very powerful within our organization, then you've got to deal with Jira and its mail queue problems. Many of these problems are in fact not Jira's mail problems. They're really due to mail server problems. We have discovered things like you can just about saturate any mail server if you batch up all the email and then squirt it out in one go. A lot of Exchange servers in particular will have rate limiting enabled. If you've not authenticated in there, you probably should be doing so that your Exchange admin can do clever things for you. In the end, it'll work as long as you throw enough large enough mail server at it, but it's still some delays there. The incoming email is actually a more interesting problem. Jira's basic handling of incoming email is effective, but basic, does 80% of what you want. For the rest of what you want, I thoroughly recommend going and talking to Andy Brook of the plugin people and his plugin JEMH, the Jira Enterprise Mail Handler. I hope I've got that right. Which will do just about everything that you want it to do. And it'll take you a while to get it configured, but once it's set, it's absolutely set. You should go and see Andy, because I also hear he's got a few T-shirts that he's desperately trying to get rid of so he doesn't have to carry them back to England. So, ways of using Jira. The fact that you need to check your Jira log if you're the Jira admin, because Jira won't be telling you otherwise. The classic one here is subscriptions. Let me get myself here. Yes. So the way that Jira subscriptions work, this is when you've saved a filter and you want a group of people to receive regular email containing the results of that. Now, if you think about it, when Jira chooses which issues are shown to you as a logged-in user, it filters. You run a filter, and there are certain issues that you might not be allowed to see as that user. There might be a security level, you might not have permission in a project, who knows? So that means that when a Jira subscription, when Jira decides it's going to send out email to 200 users, say, it has to take the filter, the JQL query, and it has to run it 200 separate times for each user to decide which set of issues they should be seeing. Okay, so that all takes some time. And then if the filter itself is returning a large, long list of issues, then the emails are going to be pretty big. And so you can see situations where a Jira subscription will kick off, and for the next 5-10 minutes, Jira is just doing nothing but searching and creating email and searching an email. And that's a classic problem that has been around for years, and is one of the reasons I don't give permission to everybody to add subscriptions to groups. Subscriptions are fine for one person. They may be slow, but not for the group, so you'll slow the whole Jira. Okay, tidying up as we come to a close here, a few good ideas. One of the things that I found most useful is this subscription at the top. So you know when you create a custom workflow in Jira, and you set the resolution as you're going into a closed status, and then people reopen it, and it goes to an open status or some such, and you forget to clear the resolution. And then a few weeks later, your users come up to you and say, you know, I've got this really weird situation. I've got an open issue, but it's marked as fixed, and every time I look at it, it's got a bar through it, it's got a line through it in Jira. And my team doesn't like having line bars through their open issues. It's confusing them, because then their closed issues look like they're opened, and their open look like they're closed. So what you've done there is you've forgotten to clear the resolution when you've reopened it on that transition. And this query here will find all those cases where that is happening. So everything where it's not closed, but you've got a resolution set. And then if you order it by the creation date, you'll be able to look and see all of the issues that are getting that this is happening in. You can go and correct your workflows. I also lean heavily on naming things properly. I believe the word is ontology, but too fancy this. Just call them decent names. Think of a way you're going to name your things that use projects and issue types and categories. Pick one that works for you and stick to it. And document it somewhere so that other people don't just have to try and work it out from what you did. And then there's the other thing. I saved the last favorite point for the last here. I have saved so much time in my life over the last 2 years or so using Jamie Ecklin's script runner. So any kind of automation inside Jira, the script runner. I see nodding heads in the audience, right? Put your hands up if you've actually used this. Wow. Wow, that's getting on half. I'm not surprised. It's free. I can't believe Jamie didn't come over here. He'd have been the biggest hero for a lot of people. So what it is, it's like the old jelly scripts inside Jira that let you automate something. It's just an admin screen. It says enter your script here, and you can you have access to all of the Jira internals. So if somebody comes to you and says, I want to add this kind of I want to add this kind of special permission to every permission scheme that begins with the letters between A and L. You're like, what? I've got 100 permission schemes. How am I do I have to go through each one manually? No, you just code it up in Groovy, which is very Java-like, not hard to learn. And there's a lot of great examples out there. So Jamie Ecklin, he's your man. We're nearly done, Dave. Okay. You good with that? Okay. So Jira really does do, for most of my clients, including LinkedIn, it does 80% of what people want just out of the box. This is why people love it. This is why we're all sitting here and saying, oh yeah, Jira, it's an easy choice. And this leads to a rapid success in our company. And slowly and surely the box that it's running on gets moved from under somebody's desk into a QA lab and into the IT centers. We found, Dave and I, over the last too many years now, that getting the next 10% of return on it for the enterprise is for sure more work, but it's definitely possible. And for us, it was totally worthwhile because it's the corporate glue. It really is. It holds everything together, becomes the default application to go to, and that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. We should have. Okay. Thanks, guys. We should have about 10 minutes left for Q&A. I'm sure there's plenty of questions for these guys because they know quite a bit. So we'll do the normal routine. I got Eric over there with a mic. We'll try to bounce from one side to the other. I see a hand right there. Maybe Eric, you can grab that one. And if anybody over here, I'll get you next.
So I heard you mention trying to federate Jira instances when dealing with the case of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So what were some of the key issues that you're trying to solve by federating Jira, and just maybe a couple of efficiencies, just the major ones that jumped out when you looked at federating Jira as opposed to just managing one?
Sure. You want me to take that?
All right.
Oh, you have it if you want.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so the question of federating Jira. This is our second choice. We wanted originally to just have keep a single instance for all the conveniences that has, and use an archive instance. But the pressure's on us now. The numbers are getting up there, and nobody ever really has 500,000 active Jira issues in their Jira. You know, you've got maybe 10, maybe 20,000. What kind of organization would have 500,000 unless it's some automated use? So the problems we've been having with that, well, first of all, it's come a long way in the last year. You can see on the public Atlassian sites how they have all their little remote links, and web links are now convenient for that. What's still not there, of course, is the searching, and that's going to become a bigger question as we start to roll that out. I'm really hoping somebody else will do that for me before then, subcontract it out.
Hi.
Hello.
How do you deal with project administrators adding Jira users as a group?
How do we deal with...
Because we basically had to not use roles at all.
Oh, you don't use roles at all? Now, that's going to hurt.
Because you kept having admins adding the entire user group to the project.
Right, so the problem is, of course, that Jira groups can only be modified by a Jira admin, whereas the project roles can be modified by a project admin. So this is, I mean, really, this is why roles exist at all, back in Jira 3.13, I think. You're not going to get very far trying to let project admins do all the changes to groups. Really, it's a role usage. There is still the tool out there, though, at least in some older Jiras, that helps you migrate from groups to roles. So that's worth looking at.
How do you manage remote API users? I have a lot of users that end up using the remote API and have issues with rate limiting them, et cetera.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we use both the SOAP API and also the new RESTly API. So during some of those upgrades, we needed to make sure that all of those API users, their code wasn't going to break, or their API or their service wasn't going to break. So one, finding out who they were, we had to go looking through the access logs, looking for anything that was that had a SOAP URL in it, or the RESTly, and so we kind of had to detectively figure out who was using it. A lot of times, we have no idea who's using it, and so that was actually a big concern for us during the upgrade, and so with those kinds of things, again, it was finding out who was using them, the detective work there, and then having them test out in our staging Jira their API calls to make sure that they work. And once they were verified there, then we could upgrade the system. But it was just mostly digging around through the log files to find out who was using what. We're also trying to migrate everybody off of the SOAP API and onto the RESTly API. There's a lot more that you can use with the REST API than you ever could with the SOAP API.
Yeah, Dave, let me give a quick plug here for the Jira Python API client that was developed by Ben Speakman, ex-Atlassian. Great piece of work there. So anytime I'm trying to do some remote access to Jira, Jira Python is the tool I go for.
So project administrators versus system administrators, are you aware of any plugins that allow project administrators to do more than they can out of the box?
Yeah, there is something that I've seen out there that no, that was something I was going to write. No, I'm not. Sorry.
Because sometimes it seems like if you could just give them a little bit more.
I know. Or the project admin just wants to be able to import data from a CSV file into their project, and they don't care about it going somewhere else. Yeah, that's a common request, but I haven't got a great solution for that at the moment. Or remote access, actually, for imports can be done.
Adaptivist rewrote the HP plugin for CSV importers. So Adaptivist rewrote for me and rewrote a CSV importer. You can ask them from HP. They took it over, so you can definitely get from them and have your project imports for project.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Adaptivist.
Eric's got one in the back.
I have to answer your question, Nikolai, because you're my client, so I have to answer your question.
Hi, you talked a little bit about rolling out upgrades from a staging environment to production.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about some recommended best practices for rolling out just configuration changes from
configuration changes in Jira? Is this on? Yeah. I'm on. Yes. So, as you all likely know, there's no standard automated way of deploying a configuration change made in staging to production, except for the workflows. And workflows, you can export the XML or even the workflow. Our current best practice, because we're not doing it, if we're not doing it in a repeated fashion in multiple times, is clear documentation of what we've done. So whether you're using an automated tool or not, full description of the changes that you've made and how they need to be made in production is vital. I've talked to at least 3 different Atlassian partners, Atlassian experts, I should say, around here in the last few days about different tools they're rolling out that will allow you to take a particular configuration and push it out to production. So my suggestion is to ask around.
Yeah, I might jump in here. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, Botron is in the demo alley.
Thank you.
And they provide a plugin exactly for that. So if you haven't already checked that out, definitely go check it. I have a question up here, and then we'll get to you.
Yes. How do you address high availability issues?
High availability in Jira. Okay, so we do this. When I was mentioning the 3 Jira instances, we have the production, staging, and the standby. And what happens there, of course, is we have regular R-syncing is going on from production to staging for all the attachments. Everything in the pretty much in the data directory. And then there's the database underneath. MySQL is doing a master slave. And it's really a cold standby, because what happens is, and we have tested this in Anger as well, is the NOC calls you up in the middle of the night from India, and they say, we took Jira down and brought it back up, but something's wrong with the machine. There was that JVM issue with Linux, Red Hat, about a year ago. So then we bounced the machine, they say. Oh, the machine didn't come up. Now we're totally toasted. So at that point, that's when it was a manual call, and we say, right, bring up the standby Jira server. It's got the data there. We might have missed about 10 minutes active data, but it didn't seem to be a huge deal at that time of night. And the attachments were all there, and that worked very, very well. In fact, the longest part of that whole recovery time, from losing access to the original production Jira to having access to the new one, the standby, took about an hour, and most of that was just running a re-index to regenerate the Lucene index. Now, I've been told by some very knowledgeable Atlassian developers that I should be able to just rsync the Lucene index over to the standby machine, but I haven't managed to succeed in having that work for me yet.
The data directory is shared between standby and main machine.
What's that? So the Jira is not up on the standby machine. It's not like you're sharing load. It's just one's there, and then you move it over.
It's available. The data directory is available from both standby and main machine.
It was actually doing an rsync. Yeah, we weren't doing shared storage.
Okay.
I mean, you could do that. Yeah.
I had just, I guess, some feedback on that prior question for how do you do not really migrations, but a lot of times
configuration deployment.
The configuration changes.
Right.
Yeah. You'll often see this in environments where they have a single Jira server and that's it. What I like to do is make clones of the things that I'm changing and create new projects and apply those clone schemes and those types of things in that clone project, make the modifications there, test them out, and then apply those schemes to your production project. Do it with an outage, back it up first.
So you're saying use a template project? Is that the idea, or is it you?
Sure. So I mean, I create a brand new project and create, basically the configuration would look exactly like the project that I ultimately want to change. And I would be making clone schemes of the things that are going to be changing. So if I'm only changing like an issue type scheme, or maybe I'm changing out some workflows, you make copy of those workflows and then deprecate out your old workflows once you've updated the production project.
Yes, that's a good idea, certainly. And of course, there's also the question of what changes do I make in production, what changes do I make in staging? What's the balance there? And my gut sense is, if you're going to change a lot of issues and it's going to be a lot of work to undo, that's when you do it in staging. A lot of the smaller tweaks, Jira is easy enough to just do in production.
We got 45 seconds, so we got one more question, and then we'll make it quick.
I'll talk fast.
I can ask it quick, but you probably can't answer it quick. We've also had the experience of asking our users to test an upgrade and not finding out until after we go into production that they didn't really do it.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with more formal testing of Jira?
I have seen people do this, where you take a whole a filter and you increase the maximum limit and you dump it all into Excel, and then you do it on another instance and you dump all your stuff into Excel, and then you use a spreadsheet diff tool to compare it. It's pretty hokey. And of course, there's always live data being added to production, so that's not easy. If I were going to do that in a more formal way, I think I'd be looking at remote access, and I would have a specific test project that I require to have the same data in both cases.
Also on the project admin side, you can do operational acceptance tests for each of those project owners, and just at the end of their testing, get them to sign on the dotted line. And
deploy it and make them sign. And then anything else becomes a lower priority when they come to fix, because they said it was okay.
All right, I think that'll do it. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.